Mahomes moving to his left laterally, chased, holding it, and gets out of bounds and up the sideline. He's not out of bounds yet. He's at the 10, inside the 10. He dives for the end zone. Touchdown, Kansas City. A remarkable acrobatic scramble on a 27-yard run.
That was hands down one of the greatest plays in franchise history, and it happened against the Tennessee Titans en route to a victory in the AFC title game. Hey everybody, and welcome into our game preview this week, presented by Crown Royal. My name is Matt McMullen, and this week we're joined by one of the greatest players in franchise history, the all-time leading tackler in Chiefs history, of course talking about Derrick Johnson. DJ, what's up, man?
Nothing much. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for the great introduction, I would say.
Well, yeah, of course. You deserve it, man. And it's an honor always talking football with you. And first, I want to talk about the defense here because you know a thing or two about defense, obviously. And the Chiefs' defense was really good last week. We've been waiting for a statement kind of game from this defense. We know they have the players to be successful in this league. We've seen it before. And last week, they were the defense we all expected, particularly in the second half. They allow 76 total yards and pitch a shutout in the second half against a Washington football team offense. It's pretty underrated. When you were watching the game last week, what did you recognize in this defense? What stood out to you about how they were able to be so effective?
Well, stopping the run, first of all. If you can stop the run, you can set yourself up big time when it comes to third down, getting an opponent into third and long. And that's what the Chiefs defense did last week. And I tell you what, man, Tyrann Mathieu is a guy he got fired up on the sideline. We saw him talking to the players just because he knows what kind of potential this defense has. And that's what we want to see this year. We want to see it more often than not, obviously. But I tell you what, to hold a team to 13 points, that's big time. It doesn't matter what team you play. If you hold them to 13 points, you're doing something really, really great. And I just love the tenacity and just the energy that the defense brought last week by stopping the run, getting them in the third and long, and getting off the field at the end of the day. Even though the offense had some problems here and there, with some turnovers, it didn't matter because the defense was on.
Yeah, and it's like you said, we know the defense can be that defense because we saw it last year. They're quietly one of the best defenses in all of football last year. And in 2019, the Chiefs don't win the Super Bowl without the defense playing like they did. And it's mostly the same guys. So we knew that they could be that defense this year. And great seeing a statement game from them against the Washington football team, hoping they can carry that into this game against the Titans. Now, it's going to be a challenge, of course, because they're facing Derrick Henry, best running back in all of football. He has 783 rushing yards this year, leads the NFL, and he's 260 yards more than second place. It's crazy what he's been able to do this season. Obviously, as a former defensive player and a former linebacker, what's the mentality like as a defensive player facing a player like Derrick Henry?
Well, you better eat your Wheaties this week. That's what we say when you know you're going against a team that's going to feed a running back the ball. Not just a running back, but probably the biggest running back in probably history and fastest. He's got some dynamics that are great to have. But I tell you what, to play against a great running back like Derrick Henry, you got to get everybody involved. Everybody has to be sound when it comes to stopping the run. And the way you stop the run, you build the wall up front, up in the middle. I'm talking about the defense, the interior guys, the defensive tackles, and the inside backers, building a wall, coming up, making sure there's no leak yardage in the middle, and setting the edge from the outside of the ball with Frank Clark and those guys. But I tell you what, we need everybody. We need safeties, everybody, because what Tennessee likes to do, they like to get the corners involved, meaning, hey, your corner's got to tackle our big back, and which is hard to do, right? But it's a good scheme, but their receivers are going to try to block our linebackers, try to block our safeties, leave the corners free on the outside and say, hey, can you make a tackle? And you can. You just got to approach them the right way. You can't wait. Got to go at him and get him. He's not going to give you a bunch of moves, which is great. But I tell you what, if you can get that bulldozer stopped early, things won't. He won't be able to do all the things that he's been doing the last few years. But I'm optimistic. I'm very optimistic, man. Like you said a couple years ago, these are the same kind of guys that we had a really, really good defense. So to get back to that, it takes one play at a time. Don't look too far ahead. And I believe that we'll get the job done. But it's going to take all 11
Yeah, and it takes really a supreme focus on every play, I feel like, going against Derrick Henry, because if you look at the game against the Bills for the most part contained him. He had 20 carries in that game, and on 19 of those carries, he had 67 yards, but it only takes one carry for Derrick Henry. He breaks off a 73-yard touchdown run, so need supreme focus on every single play. Last question for you, and speaking of focus, the Chiefs' offense impressed me last week, particularly in the second half, because we know how good they can be. They're averaging over 30 points per game. They have playmakers everywhere, and the best quarterback in football in Patrick Mahomes. But in the first half, they really didn't look like themselves. They had some uncharacteristic turnovers. Patrick Mahomes has an interception he'd like to forget. But the beautiful thing about this team is that they had the collective belief in one another to keep doing what they do in the second half, and eventually it worked out. Mahomes talked about that after the game. As a guy that's been in a locker room for a very long time, and all the talent on this offense, what can that collective belief this team has in one another, that even when things aren't going well, that they'll figure it out? How far can that propel this offense and this team moving forward?
Well, the one thing about our offense is we have tremendous amount of confidence, and that breathes throughout the whole team. That comes from the head coach, from Andy Reid on down. I tell you what, man, it doesn't matter what happens during the game. You know, football isn't perfect. Certain things happen. You know, they have good players too. But I tell you what, it's something about our players. We don't blink. We don't blink at all. Things may happen throughout the game that we're not expected to happen, but we know how to respond. I tell you what, Pat Mahomes is, man, he's just unbelievable. I mean, the games that he doesn't throw for 400 yards, he's still impressive, because there's some certain things technical that he does on the field that defense is just a nightmare for him. And I tell you what, our offense is awesome, man. It's awesome. Even when they're not on, they can be on in a split second with the weapons that we have, and it's always exciting to see.
Yeah, it sure is. And the beautiful thing about the win over Washington last week was it was true complementary football. All three phases playing really, really well, particularly in that second half, and it led to a big victory that hopefully gets this team back on track. DJ, awesome stuff as always, man. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.